So my name is Joanna Grzymała-Moszczyńska. I'm currently a postdoc at Jagiellonian University at Institute of Psychology. And I mainly work on people's motivations to engage in various collective actions, but also specifically on climate actions. So we're trying to identify different motivational factors that encourage people to engage. And on the other hand, I'm also very interested in issues connected to activist burnout. So basically what happens and what are the circumstances that make people resign from activism and yeah. So I think generally psychology will or should at least play quite significant role in this context. So maybe first I will start with social psychology. So my discipline, how it tries to tackle this issue. So for sure we're in the discipline, we're doing quite a lot of studies showing how the situation affects our behaviors. So in terms of both like individual engagement in like pro-environmental behaviors, but also collective actions, climate collective actions, as I said before. Also, social psychology does quite a lot of research on how to communicate different issues connected with climate change, climate crisis. So it could also play a role in designing communication concerning this issue. And recently, I'm personally very interested in how climate crisis affects how scientists see their role, how it impacts their research, how it impacts their like everyday behaviors, also connected with their professional roles, like for example, traveling. And another huge branch of psychology that I believe will play quite significant role is clinical psychology, that explores impact of climate crisis on people's mental health and looks into how similar or how different some difficulties that people experience are between like climate change and other social issues. And it also tries to design mental health interventions that would support people in this very difficult time and with this very difficult perspective. Yeah, I mean, for sure, children and young people are among the most vulnerable to the mental health impacts of climate change. They experience much more anxiety and fear than older generations. And among these like psychological effects, we can see like fear, overwhelm, hopelessness, anger, depression. There's also quite a lot of recent studies showing on huge samples of young people that these problems are very, very prevalent, and that's for sure something very difficult. We can also see among older people how it affects their everyday lives. We could see, for example, recently some reports about suicides of farmers who couldn't maintain their work. In terms of supporting people, I think that first of all, I think it's very helpful to see that we are not alone in experiencing these emotions, and that a lot of people shares this experience. So generally, also, I believe that community and creating groups in which people can support each other could be very, very helpful, like support groups. But we also have quite a lot of studies that show that taking some actions, also climate actions, is quite important and can provide people with like sense of control, self-efficacy, but also collective efficacy, so people can see how it that they actually can do something. And also it gives people this sense of community, this sense that they're not alone and that they're surrounded by like-minded people. And also there are some studies that it potentially can promote resilience, but also feelings of hope and significance. So something that, a feeling that we matter in the world. So I think one would be, just summing up, like one path would be providing people with professional psychological support and creating groups in which they can share and experience these emotions. And the other one would be like giving and creating spaces for people to act and to restore this sense of control. Yeah, I think it's it's quite broad issue, but there are several things I think could be, and psychology identifies as important in this issue. So one would be underlying self-interest. So basically showing people why it matters for them personally, what they could gain from engaging, and even if some people doubt if it would really change something, I really like this this thought that even if we don't change that much, we can actually like create better lives for ourselves, like now and here. So that's something like, for example, by having more like working class, or having more sustainable environment around us, cleaner air, and yeah. Another thing would be, I would say, like that they should strategically use emotions. So, for example, we know from research on collective actions that anger is something that promotes, that can serve as the spark to start engaging, but we cannot actually maintain engagement in the long run only basing on anger. And research that we're doing in our group shows that feelings of power, of significance, that you actually matter, and that your actions matter in the world. So basically, different positive feelings that you can gain from engaging are crucial for maintaining long-term engagement. So I would really encourage people and organizers to think how we can create positive, like space for positive emotions, not only the difficult ones. Another two things that I think are also quite important, it would be self-efficacy, so, and collective efficacy. So basically giving people sense that they personally can do something, and this could be facilitated by offering like different possible ways of engaging. So if, for example, someone has only like 1 or 2 hours weekly to engage, we can create, if we create some action that they can do in this time, it's much more probable that they will actually engage than if we say, okay, you have to have like at least 10 hours weekly to do something, or that you can't do that while taking care of, for example, of your children or other people. So obviously there will be some people who can devote much like a lot of energy and a lot of time for these actions, but yeah, we just have to take into account that it's not possible for everyone. And actually, while people start with those little actions, sometimes when they get more engaged, they will eventually come to like bigger engagement if the circumstances are good enough. So basically, like making this first step is very, very crucial, and like encouraging people to take it is it's something I think worth considering. And the last but definitely not least would be norms. So creating, like showing people what are like normal behaviors in terms of what is popular to do, and what is also considered by the society as something that we like or we want people to do. And especially recent studies show that norms that are called dynamic norms, so basically norms that show trends. So if we say that more and more people engage in climate activism, that is potentially quite much more impactful on how people will behave than if only we say like a lot of people engages in climate activism. So basically people as social creatures behave like are very sensitive for trends, and this mechanism is called pre-conformism. So we try to conform to norms that will basically appear in the future. Yeah, so I think these are like the most important things, and yeah, I hope that you can use some of them to engage more people in these actions.